I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. It's too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy. Too easy. It's too easy. I've been there, done it, seen it. Boy, all that like Keenan. Still got crack, they fiendin'. Flow still hot like Phoenix. Shine so bright, I'm gleaming. This off top, I'm tweaking. Fresh out the rat like Neiman. And I'm still trying to fight my demons. Cause y'all gotta act like Tina. That's why I gotta ride with the Nina.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Breaking Bet here on this Friday, March 10th. We're well on our way to conference play in all but the SEC conference, pretty much. Join with me. It seems like he's my new co-host now, Mr. Matt Grissom. Welcome to Breaking Bet yet again. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Trying to get in this Boston College bet before it starts. I think that's the only one that's going to start while we're on air, right?
It might. It might. Yeah, if you could. Okay. Yeah, probably better off to get it in now. So you kind of spoiled our opening game here. But before we get into that, we have to talk about last weekend and the, debauchery and some of these great winners that we had as well. So take me through the week 3 winners and losers, according to you.
Let me get those pulled up because I had several. Why are we going to go there? This last week and the midweek.
Have to. That's how it works.
Midweek was horrible. I had a hater on Twitter tell me I should stick to real estate. That's how bad my picks were getting. Friday night, let's see. Friday night lost South Carolina, who did end up coming back and winning that series over Clemson. Not sure why they dropped the first game, but I would bet them at minus 105 again. Texas A&M, minus 120. That was also a loser. But hats off to Louisville. I think Louisville is legit. What they've proved in that win, I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to bet against the Cardinals right now. Maryland, that's another team that I'm shaking my head, man. Plus 160 with Savakul going against Ole Miss. That was another loser. Florida did bounce back and had a good showing over the weekend. UCF dropped 2 straight to Georgia Southern after beating them on Friday night. But other than that, man, I'm down right now bad on Maryland, Texas A&M, and I don't really like TCU right now. And I think they're short a couple of pitchers today, or this weekend. So that's going to be another team to look to fade against a pretty decent San Diego team.
Yeah, so definitely my losers. Let's get that out of the way. Maryland, they're dead to me. I'm done with them. I knew their bullpen was bad. We were pretty adamant about that last week, but now the fact is they continue to not hit with runners on base, and I really don't understand what their trajectory is. They've fallen well out of the top 25 for me. I can't stand them anymore, and I can't bet them until further notice. And then I would also say on the losing board, it had to be Florida for me, just based on this. So they didn't move in my rankings. That Saturday game crushed my soul. They blow a 6-1 lead late. Hurston Waldrop left with a much worse line than he actually pitched. He had 14 strikeouts in 6+ innings. I think Kevin O'Sullivan made a mistake sending him out there for the 7th with the top of the lineup brewing. But even though they took the series against a tough Miami team, a ranked Miami team, it instilled the fact that their bullpen is a big question mark. It's going to be a big liability down the home stretch of the season. When we get into June, and it's time for the tournament, that's an area of concern. They have 3 good pitchers right now starting, but their bullpen is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. The fact that they scored 6 runs, got up 6-1, and then they allowed 13 unanswered is unacceptable. And, I'm not saying it because I had a big bet on them and I lost, and, that really pissed me off. But I think that is an issue that they're going to have to sort through. And then I'd probably say my big winners, like you said, Louisville Louisville's been quietly coming to play, and I think I had a lot of questions with them because they lost guys like Dalton Rushing and Cam Masterman from last season. But this is a team that is a top 10 program at the moment, and I think they're going to reflect it. So they're going to get, most likely they should get a very good seed. And I think this is a team that maybe we have to look out for. We have to take them seriously. And then I would say, lastly, let's give it up for Alabama. Alabama remains undefeated right now. Nobody's really talking about the Crimson Tide on the baseball diamond. And I think just the fact that they're one of the remaining 3 undefeated teams, it's worthy to mention. And I feel like we should give them some credit because last year they had a lot of problems. They had a lot of injuries. And then this year they find a way to make everything right. And they're off to one of their best starts in program history. So I think we need to keep a lookout for this Alabama team, even in a difficult SEC conference, Matt.
Yep, I agree. I just said on air before we went on air, I don't want to live in a world where Alabama is great at football, basketball, and baseball, but it looks like they are. And we'll see once they start SEC play how that holds up. But they should be a tough team to play, fun team to watch too.
Yeah, I think Alabama is going to be one that we're going to be talking about. The problem is, though, as it is with a lot of these SEC teams, these numbers aren't good right now to take. I'm not laying 195 for Bama today against Columbia. Columbia is actually not a terrible program. They're capable of pulling off an upset in one of these games. I would imagine they do lose the series, but I think they could steal one versus the Crimson Tide for their first loss. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But Matt, before we get into our slate for this Friday here, what is your thoughts on this college baseball futures? Has your opinion changed on maybe which team that you're looking at for the number or somebody that we should be keeping our eye on?
I still like Florida a lot. I think what they're doing with Cagliostani, I hope that they can keep it up through SEC play. But I think Florida, if you can still get a good price on them, the last time I saw it, it was plus 1,500 at Circa when I was out in Las Vegas. I feel like that's a decent bet. There's still so much left to be determined with several of these teams. I mean, Ole Miss, how good are they? I mean, I know we keep fading them against Maryland, I feel like every game, but LSU's too cheap of a price. I think Tennessee's down too cheap of a price. Maybe after they drop a series, if they do, you could hop on them late, but I just don't see it happening. LSU, I don't think will lose a Friday night game with Skeens going. Same with Tennessee with Dolander. It's just going to be really tough to beat those two teams, but the odds that you're going to pay for them right now, it's not good enough to bet it right now.
So I have Tennessee at 8-1 that I got a preseason. I threw a 2-unit play on that because, you know, if the Vols got off to a hot start, which they have, I didn't see their price drifting beyond that 8-1. I thought it would just keep going down. You could still get 7-1 on Tennessee, and I think that's fine right now. I don't hate taking a shot on it, but I'm with you. I would probably wait because once we get to SEC play, if Tennessee struggles a little bit and that number drifts closer to 10-1, that's the time to strike. So, you know, it doesn't really matter. As long as Tennessee makes it, which I think they will, then we're going to be looking at them as a team that you should have some skin on. But I agree with you. Wake Forest and Florida, in my opinion, are the two teams that you really need to worry about. I have a nice ticket on Wake Forest. I have a nice ticket on Florida. And I think those are two of the teams that might have not only the best, but the deepest rosters in college baseball. And that includes with LSU and Tennessee, because when you look at them, both of these programs can score 10, 15 runs in a game, no problem. They're throwing some of the best pitching in the country that we've seen right now. Friday night, you have Rhett Lauder for Wake Forest. And I'll tell you what, Sean Smith and Josh McCardle, they're rounding out the rest of that rotation really well. We know they lost Teddy McGraw. That sucks. That's a loss. That rounds out that really elite rotation. But they also have Camden Minacci in the back of the bullpen. And then if you're Florida, you have Brandon Sproat on Friday. You have Hurston Waldrop on Saturday, who's probably going to be the second or third pitcher off the board in July. And then you also have Jack Haggs, who didn't pitch last year, and this is his first year on the mound, and he's shoving on top of leading the country in home runs with 12. He might win the Golden Spikes. He also possibly could be the Dick Hauser Trophy winner as well. This is a guy we're going to be talking about as the number 1 overall pick for the 2024 draft. The problem I said with Florida, though, is that bullpen. But ultimately, I think given how good these two teams are, you need to get them right now. I sent out a tweet early this week highlighting 2 of the movements in the college baseball market from last week. Wake came down from 18-1 to 15-1, which I still think 15-1 is good. And then Florida came down from 15-1 to 12-1, both of which I don't predict getting a better number for the rest of the year. So now is the time to strike on these 2 teams because, when you're going to try and buy back in on them, they're going to be closer to like the 10-1, 9-1. I foresee Florida being 8.5, 9-1 by late April, early May, depending on how it goes with SEC play. So those are the teams I would look at. And then again, Matt, long shots, Campbell, 300-1. They came down to 100-1 on DraftKings. I grabbed Campbell on Caesars still at 300-1. I couldn't let them go. I had to get a piece of the Campbells. Also have a little bit of Grand Canyon. I like Grand Canyon. We're not going to see Grand Canyon or Campbell most likely to be able to bet them throughout the season on a weekend game. And then a little bit on Mississippi State as well. So those are the teams that I'm looking at, but I definitely think you should get involved in Wake Forest, Campbell, and Florida right now before it moves.
So, and let me just touch on that because, being Tennessee and LSU are the shortest shots, and I say there's no value on it. Basically, you look at the super regionals last year, and I've got the odds pulled up. Going into that super regional, Tennessee, who had a fantastic season, they were plus 170 to win the College World Series. Plus 170. And we all know what happened. Notre Dame ended up upsetting them and going on to Omaha. But if you've got a short shot like that and they don't make it to Omaha, it changes the odds. So if you think for whatever reason, LSU or Tennessee, they may stumble and you can get them at a plus 700-800 later in the season when you know, like, okay, this is a very consistent team. I know they're going to be in Omaha. That's when you can bet them, when you know that this is the best number you're going to get. But once Tennessee lost, listen to Texas went into Omaha as the shortest shot at plus 440. Next was Stanford at plus 5, Arkansas plus 590, Notre Dame plus 7, Ole Miss plus 850, Oklahoma plus 750. Keep in mind the 850 and 750 were 2 that were in the national championship. Auburn plus 750 and Texas A&M plus 9. So you can still get really good odds when the portion size is shrunk down to 8 teams, as long as one of those awesome teams don't make it, like a LSU or Tennessee, which I think one of them do. I don't see both of them making it, but
I think
you can
LSU's
still
out.
Yeah,
I think LSU's going to lose.
Really?
Because it's the same thing. Like, in my opinion, do you think LSU is better than this year? From what we've seen, do you think LSU is better this year than Tennessee was last year?
No.
I don't either. I think that Tennessee team is one of the best college baseball teams, maybe the best ever assembled.
Yeah, I agree.
I just, I think LSU has a lot of expectations, and I'll tell you something. Even though Thatcher Hurd and Christian Little, who are 2 studs and might work their way into the weekend rotation, they're still a big liability with the Saturday starting for LSU. I know they pulled Riley Cooper out last week and started Ty Floyd, which I thought was a good move. And like they're a wagon, LSU. Don't get me wrong. I just think the expectations might get to them. I think that's the case. I know they have a lot of studs, but there's a lot of good teams that the Tigers are going to go up against. So I think if you had to pick between them and LSU, I just don't think that they're going to live up to expectations, the Tigers.
I could see it. I mean, I wasn't high on him to begin the season. I didn't realize how good Paul Skeens was. But you're talking about just a Friday guy. You know, if you don't have anything else to back him up with, you are going to struggle. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse when I say you've got to have 2.5 guys in that pitching rotation to make it to Omaha and to win the national championship. And I don't know if LSU's got even 1.5 guys right now. You would think that they'd figure it out throughout the season, but I don't know. And also with Jay Johnson's second year, it's still pretty new, so we'll see. But that's why I just don't like them betting them right now at plus 700 or whatever they're at.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's move on here. Right before we talk about the week-to-week games, we've got to hit a little hashtag ad here. If you want all the player prop predictions that are part of Bet Karma, go to betkarma.com/JohnnyVTV and sign up. That's me. NBA, college basketball, and NHL player prop predictions are included as well. We have the MLB coming up additionally, so don't forget, we're going to have a lot of props for that. We're going to have our core plays, DFS, all that good stuff. So coming up in the next few weeks, the MLB coming back, we're going to have a big addition to Bet Karma. So, Matt, let's open up the first game here on the slate. It is 2 p.m., first pitch. It jumped out at me. The Boston College Eagles, plus 200, the Virginia Tech Hokies. There's a better number on Boston College and some offshore books and, obscure books in Middle America with the total being 12.5. Do you think Boston College can finally continue this win streak that they currently have, 10 in a row right now?
I mean, they just beat Tennessee in a midweek game, so I'm pretty high on Boston College right now. I think plus 240 is what I got at Bet Saracen, and I kind of love it. I mean, you can get plus 2.5 on the run line too, and that's something we'll discuss later on, the longevity of making money. If you take the big dogs at plus 240 prices, or if you lay it with the run line, I think this is a great matchup. I don't know why Virginia Tech isn't starting Drew Hackenberg. I think he is the better pitcher, but Griffin Green will go today for the Hokies versus John West of Boston College. As far as hitting, Boston College is the better hitting team, and I know that their competition may not has been as good as Virginia Tech's. But, man, at plus 240, come on. Boston College looks like a play, a live dog play right here.
Couldn't agree more. This is why I brought that game up. I think Boston College – so I'm not officially playing them today. They're not officially on my card, but they're worth a play. I think they probably pull this one out. I think they take at least one game from Virginia Tech in this series. They've won 10 in a row. They put it on Tennessee. When the Volunteers were pushing for a comeback, the Eagles shut that down. On a 10-game win streak is significant, dude. Like, Virginia Tech, to me, is not that good of a team this year. They lost some key guys, mainly Gavin Cross from last season. And I just feel like with the way Boston College is quietly flying under the radar, if they're able to pull out this game today, they have Chris Flynn going tomorrow, who's been unhittable. He's gotten 17 shutout innings with 27 strikeouts and only 10 hits allowed. So I think this is a big game for the Eagles today because I think they win tomorrow for sure. But I also think that if they are able to get this done today, then we're going to be talking about Boston College as a team that is quietly worth playing throughout the season because they're going to have a solid 1-2 pitching staff. And, like you said, they can score and they can score in bunches. They're not afraid of anybody. It's worth at least half a play on the money line, especially if you can get 200 or better. And then I really do love a full unit play on the run line at plus 2.5. You're going to give me 2.5 runs with this team that might be able to put up 8 or 9 runs. Griffin Green for Virginia Tech, he's a solid pitcher, but he's very streaky. So I think that the Eagles are definitely worth a play. It's a good value, and wouldn't be surprised to see them pull this one out and tomorrow as well.
Yep, I like it. And going back to betting the heavy money lines, if you think an underdog team is going to win 1 out of the 3 games, you almost have to bet it every game. And if you can get at least plus 200 and hope that you cash either Friday or Saturday, may lay off of it Sunday just because there's always chaos on Sundays. But that's kind of where I go into it And I like a couple of dogs this weekend, like Louisiana Tech against my Razorbacks. But you've just got to bet them Friday and Saturday and hope that you can cash one of the two, because keep betting the plus money prices along with these new run lines that we're seeing. I think you can make some money.
Yeah, totally. We're going to talk a little bit more in just a second about how to approach the run lines and stuff like that when it comes to this sport. So this is a good example here, especially about value. Wake Forest Demon Deacons at the Duke Blue Devils. ACC play is commencing, as we just saw. Wake Forest was minus 175 probably about 45 minutes ago. They moved up to minus 190, and they're going against a Duke Blue Devils team that they're not bad. Duke's not a bad team. They're just not one of these upper echelon programs. They have a good Friday guy tonight with John Santucci on the mound, who he represents this team. He's their best pitcher. He's solid. They can win with him. But then when you go against a Wake Forest, who, I mean, they have the guy who could be the pitcher of the year in Rhett Lauder. He's a guy who's probably going to go top 10. They have Nick Kurtz. They have Brock Wilkin. They have Adam Cecere. 3 guys who might hit all 20 home runs or more apiece this season. They're well on their way. Wake Forest can put up 15 runs in any given game. So I think that, Wake Forest is definitely the play here. I got them at 175. They are on my card for a full unit. I think 190 is fair. I probably wouldn't hate the run line at minus 1.5, given how Wake Forest is the road team today. I think the Demon Deacon should be good for at least 8 or 9 runs by my count. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, Wake Forest is going to be tough to beat. That pitching rotation is just outstanding, and Duke can hit the ball. So this should be fun. I think it should be a good series. I don't know if Duke has faced pitchers that are as good as Lauder and Sullivan and that crew, but if Duke can get hot early, I think that's their only path to victory, which kind of spills as an overplay to me too all weekend.
Yeah, I like a higher scoring. And teams like Wake Forest and Florida are pretty much automatic overs right now until we see otherwise. I think the fact of the matter is 11.5 is it's probably right where it should be. I think this is a good job by the books to kind of make this a sharp total here, Matt. And I would lean with the over because Wake Forest can hit. And one thing that bothered me during the week was they lost to Coastal Carolina, despite scoring 11 runs because they had 7 errors. So that's one of the other things. I think coming off that game, they're pissed off. They're like, okay, that's not who we are. We're not a team that's going to make 7 errors in a game. We're a top 5 program in the country, so they're going to come out and put it on Duke today. So I think, they have a high total. It wouldn't surprise me to see them win something like 9-4 in that ballpark. And I also like Wake Forest as part of a money line parlay.
Yeah, grouping together these heavy favorites, LSU, Tennessee, pretty much are automatic parlay plays for me. You could throw them in with a couple of shorter shots that you like, but that's an easy way. I'm going to say easy way because nothing with betting is ever easy, but that's a pretty consistent way to build up to where you can lay it with these heavy dogs, but make the juice worth the squeeze.
For sure. So you updated your little betting card, added Boston College on there. Very good.
I did.
Me and you both have full slates today.
Which is crazy because last night there was only like 3 or 4 plays that I liked, but I think adding the run line.
Who played last night? Because I only saw BYU on the slate.
I think there were only 2 or 3 games.
Was there? I only saw
Thankfully, because I needed a break. I got to watch some basketball.
It wasn't any big teams playing yesterday, was it?
No, because everybody's either starting conference play or has a pretty tough series.
Yeah. Speaking of, again, it's kind of a consistent theme right now. Another ACC matchup. This is one of my favorite plays today. North Carolina Tar Heels underdog at home, getting plus 110 against Virginia. So the Virginia Cavaliers are one of the 3 remaining undefeated teams. The problem with Virginia is they haven't really played anybody. They're not very, they're not very battle tested right now. And They have Nick Parker going for them, their Friday guy this week, who he's okay. Like, he's not great. Like, I don't think he's going to be in consideration for National Pitcher of the Year or anything. But the Friday guy for North Carolina, in my opinion, is regarded as one of the better arms on a Friday slate in Max Carlson. So this North Carolina team, and I haven't liked them in the futures market coming into the year. I didn't think they were going to be that good. I thought they were going to make the tournament. They're probably going to win 32 to 35 games just because they're going to have a little bit easier time in the ACC, which is a little top heavy. But this Carolina team is a top heavy roster. They have two guys who really do damage with Vance Honeycutt, who I mentioned before. He's going to be a top 3 pick next year in the 2024 draft. He profiles as a Trey Turner comparison stud. He's a guy who had 25 home runs, 29 stolen bases last year, batted around 300. Then they have Matt Horvath, and they have Max Carlson, and that's it. Their bullpen is a little shaky. It's a little questionable. But if you also look at Virginia, they're nothing to write home about. I think their pitcher can be taken advantage of today. And given the fact that you're going to give me plus 110 on this number, I think taking UNC at home for game 1 in a crucial series starting ACC play is the right side. Virginia has to lose at some time. I just don't buy their roster. I don't buy their 12-0 start.
You said Max Carlson was going today for North Carolina.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, I like North Carolina today. I still think Virginia can take this series, though. And I know all of their stats are a little skewed because they haven't really faced anybody worth noting. I know you mentioned Columbia earlier being a decent team, which they swept them. But I like the North Carolina play today. Don't love it. Virginia is going to be a team, though, I'm going to be looking to bet tomorrow and Sunday.
I could see that because, North Carolina doesn't really have any pitchers that scare you after the Friday start. But you look at what Nick Parker's done, right? He's played Ohio, Columbia, and Rhode Island. He gave up 3 runs over 5 innings to Ohio in the first game. He did pretty good against Columbia, 6 innings, 1 run. And then last week against Rhode Island, 4 2/3, 4 earned, 3 walks. So, this kid can be battered. And I think given the fact that we know how much we love Vance Honeycutt, we know how much we love Matt Horvath, those 2 guys can carry this offense. So I think UNC could put up 6 or 7 runs today. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So I think that's why at the plus money play, we should take UNC with the better pitcher in the opening start of the series.
Did you tweet out that North Carolina UVA is canceled today?
Okay, so I misunderstood. Yes, that's a good question. Thank you for clarifying. So I saw Virginia's Twitter. It said, due to inclement weather, we're playing a doubleheader on Saturday. So I thought that meant Friday, Saturday is a doubleheader, but instead it's the Saturday, Sunday games that are doubleheaders. So today's game looks like it's still on.
Good. That makes it even better to me to bet Virginia tomorrow to win back-to-back. I feel like they could get hot and just continue that through a doubleheader. So, yeah, Tar Heels, I may bet it. I'll tweet it out if I do, but I think you've convinced me. There's enough there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they played a bunch of weak schools, dude. They're putting up runs against bad teams. Columbia is solid, right? I'm not Columbia might make the tournament. I think they'll probably get into the regionals, but they're coming from a small school. They're not coming from a wagon of a program. So I think the fact that Virginia really hasn't faced an opponent, Virginia overall is probably a better team than UNC. I would think Virginia makes it farther than UNC. But I'm just saying for today, I think the matchup is definitely in favor of the Tar Heels.
And that's what you've got to do when you bet college baseball. You can't look at it everything as a whole. You're just trying to make money for one game. It's like the Iowa plus 240 a couple weekends ago. You have to erase everything else you think you know about these teams and focus on that one matchup because that's the one that's going to make or break you finishing the season up units.
100%. That's exactly right. So, Matt, here we have one of my favorite games on the slate, one of the most competitive. It's a common theme today with the SEC play, but we're going Miami Hurricanes at the NC State Wolfpack. Miami's coming off a series loss to Florida. Should have been a sweep. Really pissed off about that Saturday game. NC State, They're the last remaining undefeated team in college baseball. They have some studs. They have some boppers. Do we think NC State could pull this one out against Miami at home tonight?
I don't know how they can. I think Miami's got this series. I do think they lose one. Not sure which one it is yet. I'm going to do a deep dive into that after the show concludes. But Miami's got to be pissed off the way that they lost that Florida series. And I think that they figure it out. They get a little better help out of their bullpen, and they handle NC State this weekend.
Here's my take on NC State, Miami. Miami did a really good job this week, in my opinion, of moving their Saturday guy, Carson Ligon, to today, making him their Friday guy, at least for this week. Gage Zeal, which, if you remember, we talked about last week, he had no business making that Friday start against the Gators a week ago. None whatsoever. They moved him to Saturday this week. So I definitely think there's an advantage for North Carolina State tomorrow. But today I'm going with them because I think they're a better team. You know, Miami is a little bit top heavy. I just don't know if I buy, like, Carson Ligon's been solid, but, you know, he did get beat up. He did get beat up last week. And, you know, you get a team like the Wolfpack who they have a good lineup. They can score on you. They have a guy who hits absolute rockets, Lou James Groover. I think, honestly, for the minus 120 price, this is a close game. I can see where you're going. I can see where your head's at with this one. I do think Miami could take the series here, but I do think NC State's a better team than the Hurricanes. I feel like the Hurricanes,
may be right.
I feel like the Hurricanes, and I hate saying this because I like Miami, and I was really upset when they disappointed me last year in the regionals to Ole Miss. But they have only a couple guys. They have Yohandy Morales. That's it. That kid is unbelievable. He's really pumping up his draft stock this year. I was a big fan of his last year. I'm an even bigger fan of his this year. CJ Kafis has kind of gotten off to a slow start. They have the kid Bryce Sear, who's the freshman who's been pretty good. But overall, the Miami roster is not something that I'm afraid of. But I think NC State, I think they're a team that can make noise. And I think they're a team that I have to take today in the opener.
Yeah, I think I'm going to follow you on that. You've convinced me. NC State's also got a stud named Cannon Peebles who has a 1.519 OPS, which is just outstanding. And, you know, Miami may have yo-yo, but NC State's got a very, very solid lineup, like you said. And their pitching rotation with Will Odson and the other guy, Sam Highfield, that played, you know, I know a lot more about NC State than I probably should just because I watched them beat Arkansas in that super regional a couple of years ago, and there's still names on that roster that I recognize. So, yeah, I like it. I guess my whole theory about Miami is that they went toe-to-toe with Florida, and I have Florida ranked so much higher than where Miami appeared to be preseason. I was down on them, but I was also down on Louisville. So I don't know if that's saying just a whole lot. But was Florida's win versus Miami that impressive at the end of the day? I guess we'll see a lot after this series with NC State. But I don't think you're steering in the wrong direction back in NC State.
So my thing here is Logan Whitaker starting for NC State. He hasn't been that sharp this year, but he's been pretty solid. So I don't expect him to go down and shove in Miami. And this game is in Miami. So sometimes what happens is the sports books don't always put the home team on the bottom. You know, NC State was on the bottom here, and it's actually at Miami. But I still think this is a good spot here because Logan Whitaker can come out, throw five strong innings, get a nice 5-6 run cushion, and I think they're going to be able to coast today because Carson Ligon, he's very changeup heavy. He lives off his changeup. And what's started to happen a little bit is even though he can get these hitters to pop up on him, he was doing that a lot last week against Florida. He's also capable of leaving some of these over the plate. And then what happens is when you're able to kind of, I guess what's the word? When you're able to hold up on his changeup, because what happens is he throws the ball really low, starts low, and then it keeps going lower, and he gets guys to chase. But when you resist the urge to be a little bit aggressive up at the plate, these teams are able to take advantage because he's hanging the other pitches. So I think Ligon can get beat up today. I don't think he's going to get shelled, but I think Ligon's out there for 5 innings, 3 runs, 4 runs, and then the cavalry comes in and, Miami's bullpen gets beat up.
What do you think about the total in that one? 12.5.
12.5.
Did you play with it? I feel like we're getting some really high totals for being Friday. Seen a lot of 11.5s, 12.5s.
Well, it's been a lot of high scoring games. Listen, I could see this game going over, but the problem is with Miami, and it hinges a lot on the Hurricanes, because how are they going to hit with runners on base? You know what I mean? If Yohandy Morales isn't the one driving in the runners, can the guys towards the bottom of the lineup step up? If they have the opportunities like they had against Florida, they'll have guys on first and second, nobody out, 1 out. Who's going to step up in that bottom of the lineup? Is it going to be Sear? Is it going to be Farrow? I don't know. That's why I think the total is a little iffy when it comes to the Hurricanes.
Well, I've got NC State, Miami, but it's off the board. NC State was a minus 120 favorite, plus 100 on Miami. I'm not sure why it's off, but I like NC State.
Yeah, I think we got to go with the Wolfpack here. Hopefully they don't disappoint us and they're able to pull this one home. So then we got our last highlighted game of the slate. We have UCLA at Oregon. UCLA is an underdog. UCLA is a ranked team at the Ducks with a very low total of 9, one of the lowest on the board today. I don't know, Matt. I don't know why Oregon's favored just because they're at home.
I mean, is Oregon that good? You drop a home series to UC Santa Barbara, which, we've talked in the past about small schools out in Florida and California, man. You got to watch out for them. But I don't know. They bounced back. They did sweep San Diego. But how good is San Diego? I guess time will tell. Flyover. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm on UCLA this weekend. I mean, until I see that Oregon can run supreme in the Pac-12, I'm just not buying it. I think the wins over teams like Vanderbilt, I know Pepperdine is down this year. They're typically a pretty decent baseball school. Pepperdine, Michigan, also down. They beat Long Beach State, Sacramento State, the small schools in California. UCLA is the more consistent team at this point. They're taking care of business. They're winning in lower scoring games. I like the Bruins here in Eugene to beat the Ducks.
I do too. I think the pitching advantage is definitely in favor of UCLA. We know who these guys are for UCLA. These are the kind of pitchers predominantly that they're not going to be top 10, top 15 picks, but these are guys that are going to keep their team in the ballgame. They're going to do their job. They're going to be the 6 innings, 2-3 runs kind of guy. They're going to be the quality start pitchers, 5 innings, 1 run, whatever it takes. And, it's all about the UCLA offense. Are they going to be able to score? That's the big key. And, the one issue with the Bruins is their offense. But I think ultimately against this Oregon team, who their pitching isn't anything to brag about, I think they'll be able to plate enough. 4 runs, maybe pull this one out 4-2, 4-3.
Yeah, I mean, neither one of these teams can really hit the ball that great. They've only got 3 guys that are over a 1 OPS on both sides of the ball. Pitching advantage, like you said, definitely with UCLA. They've got 3 guys that are throwing sub 1.42 ERAs. So that's pretty impressive and enough proof there to back the Bruins.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm looking at UCLA. They're an iffy team to me. I do like the Bruins, but you have to be very careful when you pick the spot. Last year, I liked betting UCLA on Friday because they had a pitcher by the name of Max Rajic, who I think got drafted. Where'd he go? He went to the Nationals or he went to the Cardinals? I can't remember. But Max Rajic on a Friday was really good. That was the kind That was the kind of play last year on a Friday with UCLA that you would pick to upset Stanford or Oregon State against Cooper Jertby. That was the kind of team that they had. So you get Jake Brooks today, you get Alonzo Treadwell tomorrow. I think UCLA should be able to take this series. I wouldn't put them past to sweep this one because I just don't know if we're going to be able to come up with enough offense. But I do think the Bruins, as the underdog on the road today, is a serviceable play that should get this one home.
Yep, I agree. And you left off one. If we're done recapping the top games, I'm loving this Iowa at Texas Tech game that we're going to get tonight in this series. But you got ranked 23 Iowa Hawkeyes, who I can't quit them, man. Texas Tech, they had a heartbreaking loss in like 28 innings or whatever it was against Texas A&M on Sunday night. But, man, what do you think about the Hawkeyes coming in to Lubbock? Do you think there's any merit there for them to come away with even just one win, much less a series win?
So I didn't realize that Iowa was number 23. I was busy looking at my own rankings. So D1 Baseball has them at 23. Campbell at 24. That's our boys. Roll Humps.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that Iowa's a ranked team now. I think it's good. They're a good team. You know, they earned a lot of people's respect, including ours, with that big win against LSU a couple weeks ago. You know, I think Iowa can take the series from Texas Tech. I was not big on Texas Tech coming into the season. They lost their two best pitchers from last year, Andrew Morris, Brandon Birdsell. They lose Jace Young. He was a big part of their offense. So I think Texas Tech, who, like, they're an okay program right now, but they were kind of living off reputation and name. They don't have it to back it up this year. So I think Iowa is like this scrappy team that comes out of nowhere, that comes from the Big Ten. And I think when you look at their pitching, they have Ty Langenberger, who has kind of been their Friday guy. He's been consistently the guy that kicks off the series. Then you have Brody Brecht. And the thing about Brody Brecht is right now, you just know him because he throws 100 miles an hour, 101 with a great slider. This kid hasn't even begun to touch his potential. He's just playing off athleticism right now. This kid walks a ton of batters. He's not consistent. He doesn't have great command yet. Once he figures it out and once he becomes more consistent, Iowa might be a smash play most Friday and Saturday nights if these two are going to be the 1 and 2s throughout the rest of the year. So tonight, listen, Texas Tech, you still have to have respect, Matt, but I don't hate the plus 145 you're going to be able to get on the Hawkeyes to upset the Red Raiders tonight.
Yeah, and I haven't seen enough out of Texas Tech to make me a believer that they should be laying this kind of number against an Iowa team that is not bad. I mean, I know Tech is 12-2, but outside of beating up on they schedule all these 4-game series at home to start the season where they can just beat up on the Western Illinois, Gonzaga, Air Force. Yeah, their best win is against Rice.
Michigan?
Maybe.
They lost to Rice.
They lost to Rice.
Maybe their best win is a Michigan beat. Michigan. Like, they lost to A&M last Sunday in the Shriners Classic. They lost to Rice on Friday. They beat Air Force. They beat Western Illinois. They beat Gonzaga. Fine. Like, that's all well and dandy. But like you said, they haven't beaten anybody. And the fact is, Iowa's good this year.
And Iowa's been tested.
That's weird,
I mean,
right?
they played LSU.
Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird? Iowa's kind of good right now.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Do you buy them long term?
Man, they beat LSU 12-4. I know baseball is one game, and you get a new game the next day. Nothing you can harp on, but man, they're consistently hitting the ball, and they've got pitchers. And at this level, Iowa goes on the road to Lubbock this weekend and then plays like 10 straight games at home against South Dakota State, Western Michigan. Before they even open up conference play at the end of March against Maryland, we could be looking at like a 20-2 Iowa team. You know how insane that is?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Iowa's a team that we're gonna have to keep an eye on. I don't think they have the capability to win it all, but I think they could be a fun story. I think they could be a team you could make some money on because the market hasn't adjusted to them yet, especially when you're going against these Big 12 teams, the SEC programs, the ACC programs. Iowa's still kind of an afterthought, but they have the ability to pull these upsets as we've seen. They've beaten LSU and they've beaten them bad. So I do think that the Hawkeyes are a team that's a worthy bet. I like them at the plus 145 today. I was saying off air, I think Iowa maybe, right? Maybe. If they lose today, I would hammer them tomorrow. Brody Brecht on the bumski.
Yep. Even if they lose 20-0, you've got to go back to them on Saturday with Brecht. I mean,
I think that Sam Houston game kind of rubbed us the wrong way on them.
It did.
Right?
But maybe Sam Houston is better than what we thought. I mean, hell, I bet him last weekend against Texas, and they lost. But, I mean, it's one of those things, man. Baseball's a funny sport like that. But going back real quick to Texas Tech, I don't know if you watched that game, if you stayed up for it. I've got a beautiful ray of sunlight shining in on me. But I don't know what Tim Tadlock was doing, or Tadlock was doing in that game. He left the guy out there just to continue to get shelled, and he was walking batter after batter. They ended up giving up the 2-1 lead with 2 outs because of a walk. And that was a brutal way to lose that game for me. But, it just capped off a shitty Sunday anyway, or a shitty weekend. But it is what it is. That's betting baseball for you.
Yeah.
Try to fix this. There we go. Hello. All right. What's
okay.
left?
So is there anything else that you're looking at this weekend or today, I should say?
I touched on San Diego earlier. They've got a series against TCU. I've heard from several sources that TCU is going to be without a lot of arms this weekend. So if you could just get like a plus 350 or more price on San Diego, one of these three games, that may be something worth a play. I really need to dive deeper into that. But outside of that, there's not really another great matchup. You've mentioned Alabama, Columbia. That could be okay, but you would assume that Alabama's just uber talented compared to Columbia, and they'll take care of that series. Campbell is on the road against Appalachian State. I feel like the Camels are probably the right side on that.
If there was a number, I don't even know if there's a number out there on that.
Yeah, the last one I saw was Campbell minus 170 at
really?
Saracen.
At Saracen?
Yeah, it seems cheap. I may bet it. It's one of those games though. It's going to start at 2:00. So I'd like to at least dive a little bit deeper into Appalachian State. They're an 8-3 team. They really hadn't beaten anybody impressive, but
can't go against Campbell.
No, you can't go against Campbell.
But
I've got to justify laying 170. Like it's got to be a pretty solid reason for them to only be minus 170.
I mean, they're a wagon though. So I think the thing is you have to make sure what I said before. You have to take Campbell to win it all, 300-1. That's just a ridiculous number that should not be out there that high.
Has a mid-major ever made it to the national championship though?
I have to go check the archives, but it's not the point. If you get that number right, and then they get a good draw, and you could end up
closing line value. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it. But UMBC upset. What was it, Virginia in the tournament as a 16 seed? So I guess it has to happen sooner or later.
It does. So okay, before we kind of wrap it up here, you wanted to mention something about the run lines that we talked about off air, about opening value, that kind of thing. So I'll let you have the floor.
So the way I have figured it up, if you take a 3-game series and you're a dog of plus 300 or more, and you bet $100 every game because you are certain that the dog is going to take at least one of the 3 games in the series. Doing that versus betting the dog on the run line, which, this is still kind of a learning curve because we haven't had access to college baseball run lines like this. But it seems to me that the run lines aren't always correlated with the dog price that they should be in baseball. Whereas, like, I'm just going to grab a random game here, like Tennessee. Okay, they're minus 1,400 if you wanted to bet the Vols against Morehead State, or minus 4.5, but you've got to lay minus 165. So you're telling me if I could risk $1,400 to win 100 or 165 to win 100 on minus 4.5, if the total is 12.5, Tennessee should win this game like 10-3, 10-2, something like that. So betting the run line on these heavy favorites seems to be a pretty profitable strategy. Whereas the reverse on a dog, I don't like betting a dog on the run line as much as I do betting a heavy favorite, because the value is so much more on the dog winning a game. And I feel like I'm kind of going in circles. I need to contextualize what I'm saying, but basically it boils down to, you look at a series, if you think the dog is going to take one of 3, you're better off betting the money line on the dog every day of that series than trying to bet the run line. Because, for instance, tonight with Paul Skeens going with LSU's not going to lose, and I doubt that that they cover the run, or the other team covers the run line too. So you're just losing your money faster. You can take a little bit less of a risk by playing a smaller unit on a big dog than trying to lay that run line. Because more often than not, I feel like the favorites on these run lines are coming home.
That's a good point. I do think, there's definitely value, especially getting it early. For instance, like I gave out a nice parlay earlier last night, or late last night. But real quick on those big teams that are laying the run lines, the huge run lines, for instance, today, and trying to beat the value when it opens up. So just so people know, the run lines usually come out around 10:30, 10:40 Eastern time. So that's when you're really going to get the best of them. So I gave out, and it's on my card, I gave out LSU minus 4.5 at minus 115. And that was probably, I would say, at 12:35, 12:40. In about 20 minutes, it moved out to LSU minus 6.5. Just to give you an idea, it's sitting at 6.5 right now, which means the 4.5. Which means the 4.5 was
a steal. Yeah,
steal, absolute steal. And then same thing with Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee, it was 4. I think it might have been 4.5. I took Tennessee at minus 5.5. I want to say. I have to go check my my number here. I ended up taking Tennessee at minus 5.5. That's probably a little bit higher. I think I could have got the 4.5. I was a little late on it, but I still think against Morehead State, the Vols with Chase Dollander pitching, they should be able to win this game 11-3, 11-4. That kind of price. Like so, I think in a situation like that, that's a way for you to get involved on these stud teams. And believe me, watching these daddy wagon Trojan horse teams, having some action on them, it's fun. So that's the best way. That, or you have to do the big money line parlays, which brings me to the next point. Johnny V's Loch Ness Monster is a Wake, Tennessee, LSU money line parlay at plus 108. 3 teams with big odds, but like I said, there's 3 of the best 5 teams in the country. So I do think that there's tremendous value on this. You're able to watch some of the best teams in the country, and I think this is a very profitable play. Typically, if you're able to get these big schools, these big programs on a money line parlay, it's going to work out more times than it's not. What do you think, Matt?
Yep, I completely agree. Either parlay the heavy favorites or just lay the run line with them. And I have not been able to track it. I am now. I'm going to start saving all of the lines when they come out. But, there's no way to go back in the archives to see how many of the teams last week covered that run line spread. So expect that next week. I'll have you a full list of teams that covered against the spread on the run line, and we can start tracking this and determine, is it worth just laying the big 4.5, 5.5 run line on these heavy favorites? But until we know that, let's parlay them, baby.
Matt, as usual, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
At Grissom Tweets on Twitter, or you can follow me at mattgrissom.com. I post all of my plays in a spreadsheet. You can follow along. And I'm also starting to do this data from the diamond, where I break down, give you a little preview of the series matchups, and you can stay tuned on Twitter to follow those.
And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at _JohnnyVTV, Instagram JohnnyVTV_, and TikTok at JohnnyVTV. All good stuff. And don't forget, in a couple weeks, we're going to have some MLB stuff. I have a lot of great futures. We're going to have a show that's going to feature, at least for half of it, some really good plays that you guys need to get on ASAP before the year starts. So thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check out all of our free sports betting tools we offer daily on betkarma.com, and then hop into our community chat room by going to betkarmachat.com. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Everybody, take care, and we'll see you next week.
I can do this with my eyes closed.